Well, today I have the great pleasure of having Mike Goodrich, and we're going to talk about singer's mindset. And you can find Mike on mikegoodrich.com. And I am Gabriel Weiner, and you can find me on contemporaryvoicelessons.com. Mike, thanks so much for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, you bet. Great to be here. Great to see you.
So I thought we would start, and probably putting you on the spot, but as a mindset guy, you probably will do well with this. If I'm going to start saying three things that I'm grateful for about my voice, and then you can say three things you're grateful for about your voice.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right. So the one I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for all that I invested in my instrument as I was developing as a singer. So I'm grateful for the skills I've developed. I'm also grateful for the flexibility in my voice, and I'm grateful that I could sing a G with ease and comfort.
Oh, I love it. That's great. That's
How about
great.
you?
Yeah, well, I'm really grateful for the fact that one of the things that I could never, ever do with my voice, and that I couldn't find anybody to teach me for years and years and years, has become one of my best things. And that's actually singing softly. Being able to artistically sing softly. I had so many people over the years. I would go to them, I would hear them doing it, and I'd say, "How do you do that?" "Oh, I don't know. I could always do that." I was like, well, that doesn't help at all. So I'm really grateful for that. Um, I'm just grateful to make sound. I love making sound. I don't need an audience. It doesn't need to be a song. I just like, so I'm just grateful to feel the feeling of the vibrations and the feeling in my body. Um, so yeah, that's one thing that I really, really, really love. And I love my, at the, you asked for this, so at the expense of sounding anything near immodest, I'm really grateful for my ability to phrase. I honestly am a really, really good phraser.
Oh, nice.
So I'll give you another. I can do some singing imitation. So there you go. There's four.
Great. So I thought that'd be a good way to start because I know that, I'm always going to be a singing student. So I was going to say when I was a student, but even though I'm a teacher, I'm a student first and foremost. But when I was, more of a student than a teacher, which today I would say I'm about 50-50. I didn't focus on the things I was grateful for.
Mm.
And so maybe we could start talking about gratitude for what is there in the mindset field. What do you think?
Gratitude and appreciation are huge. They're really, really important and really overlooked. And they're, in my opinion, they're really the difference between somebody who's going to be a happy singer and somebody who's going to be an unhappy singer.
Hmm.
And in other words, you can take a singer, you take two singers, one unhappy and one happy, and we'll give them both the exact same level, let's say, skill set and talent and ability. And the one who's grateful and appreciative of what they have and measures themselves the right way, and I'll go into that in a second, is going to be much happier always than the one who is not grateful and measures himself the wrong way. And can I talk for a second about what I mean by measures themselves?
Oh, please. Yeah.
This is something. There's a wonder. I call him a philosopher actually, but he really is he's a coach, and of all things, he's an entrepreneur coach, and his name's Dan Sullivan. Uh, and I heard this first from him, but I realized it was something that I had sort of known for a while, but had never put into words. And it's if you take those two singers, and let's take the unhappy one. So we take the unhappy singer and we measure, okay, what is making him or her unhappy? So, okay, they've made progress, they've got a level of talent, they have many things that they can do, and they also have a place from which they started that wasn't as good. So they started somewhere where they didn't have the skills and the skill set and the talent that they have now. The problem is when they set those goals to achieve what they would refer to as the ideal, like I want to sing like so and so, or when I can sing all these notes, I'll be happy, or when I can sing this song, or when I get this part, or whatever. They're measuring against an ideal, and an ideal is like pretty much like chasing the horizon. An ideal is something that's not really realizable because it's very, very abstract. The example would be if you go outside and you see the horizon, you see where the sky hits the earth, and you say, I want to go there. You say, okay, well, I'm going to make some plans, and I'm going to go this far today or in 2 months. And you get a certain distance, and you realize you begin to judge yourself against the horizon, and you haven't made any progress at all. So I'm nowhere. I haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
The unhappy singer does this. They judge themselves against an ideal that they're never going to reach. And the happy singer, same amount of talent, same everything, does one thing different. They have the same vision, they have the same goals, they have the same ideal. They move towards it, and when they get to a certain place, rather than looking forward to the horizon, they turn around and look backwards from where they came.
Mm.
And they measure themselves based on the progress they've made and where they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they're incredibly appreciative and grateful for that. And those are the happy singers. And that's called living in the gap or living in the gain. When you live in the gain, you look back and measure from where you came to where you are, and you feel happy, you feel successful, you feel like you're really making progress. If you live in the gap between where you are and the horizon you will never reach, you're always going to be an unhappy singer.
Yeah. You're counting your blessings in that. And I wanted to say about that counting your blessings and counting your achievements and counting the progress you've made, like you're saying, looking back and seeing where you were and where you've gotten to is a beautiful thing. And one of the things I think is also important to talk about is how to deal with disappointment, frustration, and failure, right? So on many levels, whether it's you're vocalizing and you can't quite get a note the way you wanted to, or you're going on an audition and you're not being accepted in, or things like that, how to frame that in a way that is not self-defeating. And my experience with failure is that I've learned a lot more from my failures than my successes. And I know that that sounds crazy to some people that would hear that, but that's kind of what you were talking about, how to measure yourself. That's kind of how I know where I'm at. It gives me some sort of barometer of like where I am at, where I want to be, and all of that stuff. So I don't want to just talk about success, but I also want to talk about the value of not quite making the mark, whether it's in a note that you're singing or an audition that you're going to, or a song that you're frustrated with. If you have anything on that.
Oh yeah, I have lots of failures.
and so does every singer that we look up to.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, absolutely. And the ones that are transparent about it, make it easier for the rest of us to be transparent about it. There's not anybody that has not had oftentimes pretty large degrees of what they could interpret as failures. I prefer to look at it as feedback versus failure. They can feel pretty devastatingly awful at the times.
Yeah.
I'll share one real quick one with you. I did Sunday in the Park with George years ago. 1987. Played George in Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh, great role.
Great role. Yeah, it's a great show. I loved it. And that was great. We had a ton of fun. About a year after that, there was an audition in Los Angeles for the Phantom of the Opera that was going to start. Les Mis was here at the Schubert, and Phantom was going to start. I had no idea. I had no intention of auditioning for it, but I came down with a buddy of mine who was a great tenor and was auditioning for Pirelli. No, not Pirelli. That's Sweeney Todd. Piangi, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different show. Um,
Mike, can you hold that thought? I'm
yeah,
not a big video editor. The screen is shaking sometimes when you're talking. I don't know if you're tapping where it
yeah. I'm
is.
I'm I'm on a stand-up desk and I'm leaning on it and I'm moving it. So yeah,
Oh, okay. I just
we'll
don't
take
want
that out of the
people.
editing.
Good. I won't be able to get that out of the editing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to edit. So
yeah.
sorry, singers. I know you're probably, his screen is shaking. Okay, go ahead.
That's great. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm on a boat. You didn't realize that. I'm on a cruise right now. So
We can
anyway,
talk about humor later too.
yeah, right, totally. So anyway, the Sunday in the Park with George went well, but so I accompanied my buddy down to Los Angeles, and while sitting around waiting for the audition, I thought, I'm here. You know, if I can crash the audition, I'll go in. I had no music, I had no nothing. I was very unprofessional about this, and somebody had a book, and their audition book, and I looked through it, and I came upon Empty Chairs and Empty Tables, which is in Lamia's.
Love that
And I
song.
thought, I can sing this. And I, went down in the car, sang it, thought, okay, this will be fine. I'll do that. I go into the audition. They say, and it's Johnson and Liff. They were the biggest casting people at the time, casting all these big shows. And they said, what are you going to sing? And I said, Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. They said, we don't want to hear that. You should never take that into an audition. That's the worst song. And I'm like, just like totally stunned. And so, like any good theater person, what did I do as they started questioning me? I of course lied about everything. They said, well, sing something else. Well, I didn't bring my music. I forgot my music. You came down from Northern California to the biggest audition of your life and you forgot your music. Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you know? I just did Sunday in the Park with George. We can't play that. And oh my God, this is just like, it's getting worse every second. So the accompanist starts throwing out all these names of songs. The first one I thought he said was the first one I grabbed was "If Ever I Would Leave You" from Camelot. Okay, I know that. I said, okay, let's do this. So he plays it. The song is so low, and back in those days, I had not worked out my voice, even though I'd done the roles that I had done. If I was throwing a curve and hadn't had a chance to work something into my voice, I didn't really have what would be called a great technique. And so I'm doing the best I can with this thing, and it's solo, and I can tell they're all looking at me like, how did this guy ever sing a role like George or Che in Evita when he's like killing himself on like a D? And so it finally ended, and they made me sing the end again, and I know it's because they couldn't believe that it was so bad. No, we got to hear this again. We got to hear this.
Wow.
And so I sang it again, and the rest is blank. I think I've blocked it out. But what I do remember is the most, as if that wasn't bad enough, the most embarrassing part of it was that when I opened the door to walk out of the audition, the guy who was walking in, who saw me, who clearly heard the whole thing, was actually the guy who had understudied me in Sunday in the Park with George.
Wow.
And I was like devastated. My buddy who auditioned, of course, got called back 12 times and did a great audition. And I had to drive back, 4-hour drive with him in the car.
Oh my
And
God.
so anyway, but that was a huge failure. But to your point, that turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me because I had to realistically assess without any ego, without any, well, I've done this and this, without cockiness, where I was vocally. Okay, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, and I can't do this. I got to learn how to do this stuff. So I immediately moved down to LA and started studying with somebody that helped me, immediately. And then I started teaching, and then, the rest is history. But that one seemingly horrible incident completely changed my life for the better.
And was this teacher you studied with addressing mindset or mostly your skill set?
Only skill set. Even I wasn't addressing mindset back then.
Right. Yeah. So, because I like to post inspirational singer quotes on Instagram that I kind of come up with as I'm teaching. And I recently posted that the goal of vocalizing every day is to get your skill set to be as good as a great mindset. And so the reason why I asked you to do this is because I think mindset is so important to address, because I think a lot of singers are working on their skill set, But if the mindset isn't there, then that's when the issues come in. So I started out with gratitude because I think that that's one thing you can infuse your skill set with, like you were saying. So you could be a happy singer.
Right.
And I think that there can be different engines that motivate us to develop our voice. It could be like, oh, I'm so unhappy with my voice. I want to work on it, so I'm happy with it. Or we could come from, oh, I'm so happy that I have a voice. I want to cultivate it, develop it, and nurture it. And so, like you were saying, the happy singer and the unhappy singer, and I've certainly been both. And I remember that I would spin my wheels a lot more when I was coming from this, oh, I don't like that my voice isn't doing these things. I want to make it do it. And I had a really strange unconscious belief or fear that if I was happy with my voice, my progress would stop. Do you see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think that was part of what was perpetuating this. I think being dissatisfied with what my voice can do is what's driving my continuing to bang my head against the wall, hoping that some breakthrough would happen. But it wasn't until I was like, I like what my voice can do, and I like where I'm at in my voice. I just want to take care of this beautiful gift, and I don't mean gift that as a gifted singer, but just anyone with a voice
Right.
in my eyes is gifted. But to go back to something you said way back a few times ago, you kind of I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but you talked about skill set and talent, and it sounded like you were kind of making them synonymous. I'm not sure if that's what you were trying to do, but I would love to address this whole talent thing and skill set thing, and then mindset thing, and what talent is in your view. I
Yeah.
certainly
Well,
have thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
I think that I think the way I look at talent would be probably the way I would look at the the naturalness of somebody's, what's the right word, ability to develop a skill set. So let's if I wanted to be a boxer, which I clearly don't, um, but let's say I was way younger and I just really wanted to be a fighter, and I'm like 5'9", about 150 pounds,
Mhm.
Um, I do not have the talent to be the heavyweight fighter or the heavyweight champ, no matter how much I develop my skill set. Now, that sounds like a negative thing, and it may be it may be a negative way to look at talent. That's not how I look at it. I also wanted to be a dramatic tenor like Mario Domenico or Franco Corelli.
Mm.
I don't have that innate, let's say, rather than, we could even replace talent with that genetic makeup or that biology or that the physicality that I would need, the structure in my larynx, my cord, everything
Mhm.
to accommodate that. I
Mm.
could improve my skill set like crazy, but I'm not going to be that. And I think so. You make a great point. In other words, if we look at talent that way, it becomes hugely important to be realistic with where we sit in the overall scheme of things as far as our voice goes. And this is where so many singers, and I was guilty of this as well. This is where so many singers make the mistake, and this is where a lot of unhappiness and judgment and disappointment and frustration come in with their voice, because it's the square peg in the round hole. They think, well, you know, I have a certain amount of talent. I should be able to develop my skill set, especially if I have the right mindset to be able to do this. And yet, if they're assessing unrealistically what they're able to do, as dramatically as me wanting to be heavyweight champion of the world, because it gets that ridiculous, it really does,
Mm.
then you're setting yourself up, or they're setting themselves up for disappointment, as I was. I was constantly, constantly disappointed. Because no matter what I did, I couldn't get my voice to be dramatic tenor, Franco Corelli. Just couldn't do it. It would never do that.
Yeah.
And so, but my talent was for musical theater. Now, musical theater, I could be a great musical theater singer and performer, or a really bad opera singer. Same guy, same voice, right? So my talent would lend itself much more to this, but I thought I could develop my skill set and make my talent do that.
Yeah.
And the best
And
mindset
that's
in the world is not going to help that.
Yeah, that's the importance of feedback. I like what you said, that failure is feedback. I think that your Corelli was a huge inspiration, obviously, but that didn't mean that you would become him. It just meant that it was pointing to a love of singing that you had, but it didn't mean that you would be who he is.
Right.
My view of talent, if I may, is that what I understand talent to be is love, is when you love something, and that love then facilitates the honing of a craft or something because you just love it. And so, like, the more you love something, the more you're going to work on it and the better you're going to get. And so I think that when I replace the word talent with the word love in my mind for myself and for my students, it makes a lot of sense why someone would continue to go back into something that they're so frustrated with time and time and time and time again. And to me, if you have that love, then you're going to have qualities that look like determination, that look like skill, that look like all of these virtues, right? Because you love it and you just can't get enough of it. And so I think that the more you love something, the more talent you have in it. But to your point, which I think is great, and this is something that I didn't understand when I was a younger singer, and I think a lot of singers don't understand for a long time, is that there's I don't know if I'm using the right words, but there are politics in the world of a career of a singer, where there are requirements that need to be met to be a good fit in certain places. And I think that a lot of us, this is to me part of mindset, aren't aware of that realm of politics, which means that's been done since people have began singing professionally, like labeling singers as a baritone, a tenor. I don't categorize my singers because I'm not a musical theater specific teacher, and I'm also not a classical teacher by any means. So I don't really concern myself with labeling my students as any of those things because I personally don't find a use for it. I just more gauge or assess how much they love what they do. And if they love it a lot, I'm just there supporting it as much as they can to get them to just be as skilled as they can be. And then what they can do with this skill set and this mindset is up to the market, right? Because there's a market. And so it depends on who you are and what you bring and how much you know yourself, how you're going to succeed in this world. But if you're trying to be Corelli when you don't have the instrument for it, you're obviously going to be very frustrated all the time.
Right. Absolutely. I wish I could remember who said this. A very, very famous author said, "Be yourself, everybody else is taken."
Yeah. Oh, that was Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, Oscar Wilde. There you go. So yeah, and I agree with you about the love. And what I finally came to realize myself, and what I try and instill in all my students, is absolutely that. Is the love of singing, the love of your voice, and the separation between. This is going to sound weird. The voice and you. In other words, I have singers, and I used to be one of them, that the voice is them. We carry it around with us. It's with us all the time. We talk all day, and then we sing. The voice becomes our identity, and all these things weigh on the voice. And I certainly used to be one that if I sang bad on any given day, and I used to sing badly a lot, I would be in a bad mood, because my identity was completely tied to how well I sang and where I thought I was. And of course, going back to the original thing that I said, I was always measuring in the gap. So I was never anywhere near where I wanted to be. So I was unhappy a lot and frustrated a lot and blamed it on my voice a lot and had the Salieri complex. Why can't I? That kind of stuff. Um, but if we as singers can be slightly more academic about it, scientific, curious, and if we learn to ask the right questions from a mindset perspective, that can really, really help. If you have a singer or you're working on something, and it's not going well, I hate to even say judging it as not going well. Let's just say you're not getting it as fast as you had hoped. A lot of us say, I can't believe I'm not getting this. I can't believe I can't do this. Why can't I do this? How come this is such a hassle? Why is this so difficult? And any number of questions that program the brain to get an answer that substantiates why you're already not getting it.
Mm.
Whereas if the one little shift is, what can I do to get this even better?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an attitude, right? It's about having a good attitude. I think that mindset and attitude are pretty much the same word. Like, what's your attitude?
Yeah, exactly. And I like breaking down mindset is to how you set your mind.
Hmm.
So mindset, because that's thrown around so much nowadays. It wasn't when I started doing this, but it certainly is now, right? So how you
Yeah.
set your mind in very, very important, just like your attitude. So, but the questions program the brain. If we were to do kinesiology right now, and kinesiology muscle testing,
Sure.
I'm convinced. Well, I've actually done it. Well, my wife and I do kinesiology all the time.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but if you have a student and you muscle test them, you hold out their arm and you push on it, you have them say, "Why can't I do this?" They're going to go, because it takes all. It just saps the energy. But if you have them say, "What can I do to do this even better?" So what can I do to do this even better? Because that presupposes the even better that you're already doing it fairly well. And that tells them, oh, okay. And then you're telling the brain to look for ways to actually help you. This is just like neuroscience 101. If you say, how come I never get this note? What does the brain hear? The brain picks out this phrase, never get this note. Okay, how can we help him never get this note? And that's very oversimplified, and yet it's what's going on.
Yeah. I love
So,
what you, I love that your wife and you do kinesiology. And that's another thing I want to get in. We have another 15 minutes. I have a student coming in. I'd love to go in much longer. I'm sure you also have other things to do. But that I think we singers need support aside from voice work, like kinesiology or any number of rituals or other things that they do. So, like for example, I meditate.
mhm.
I don't think everybody should meditate, but it's one of the things that I do to support cultivating a better attitude and a better mindset, not just about singing, but about my life as a whole. And I love what you were saying about separating the voice from the singer and untying the identity from that so that when you don't sing well, you don't feel like you're, no good, or when you sing well, you feel like you're the best. Um, and at the same time, I love also to, because my singers, the students will say, my voice, da 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 da. And so I'll be like, you mean you, right? So my voice won't do this. And then I will do this little thing where I'll say, you mean you won't do this? And so it's interesting to hear your perspective on like decoupling your voice from the self. And to me, like usually when I teach, I like to couple them together and say like, you are your voice, your attitude and your voice is a reflection of your mindset and your attitude. But I like the way you're saying it because I understand that what you mean is that you don't want to be so identified with your ability to sing certain things with just your entire mood. But I find that as a singer, it's really hard for me
Yeah.
to not feel crummy when my voice isn't doing well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because we all want to sing well. We all want to have those great high notes and things that feel real great in our voice. But you see, I think that you're right as well. I think that it's rather than an or, I think that it's definitely an and, because the way I'm looking at it is sort of like the voice is a very, very different instrument than anything we have. Number one, it's the only instrument, bar none, it is absolutely the only instrument really that we carry around with us all the time. And the second thing about that is it's the only instrument that we build and learn how to play at the same time. If you buy a guitar, it's done.
Yeah.
That piano in front of you, it's done. You don't
Yep.
have to build it. There are not some keys that don't work that you have to avoid working. You don't have to work around. There's not the stress of that, right?
Right.
So the reason both of those are right is the reason that I think it's great that you say it's you is because almost more from what I'm getting, when you say that almost more than it's you, like your voice, like a bad thing, it's like, no, no, no. It's you are in charge. You have the ability to look at this a certain way. You can bring a different perspective to it. You have the power within you to bring about a quicker progress by the things that you do, by being grateful, by developing your skill set and your mindset. This is you. This is your responsibility.
Yeah.
If you were a guitarist teaching guitar, if you were a guitarist teaching guitar, then the person would put their guitar in the case, take the guitar home, put it in the corner, and then go out, and would be much less apt to be very discouraged in the evening with their friends because they didn't feel like they could master the Clapton lick, right? Then, if they had a voice lesson with you and it didn't go well with their voice, and they went home and they're with their voice and they're talking and they're constantly reminded, you're carrying this thing around, it didn't work, and I feel tired, There's a huge temptation then to say, I'm bad, I suck, my voice is this, my voice is that. Whenever we have a piano that's a decent piano, right? Or a guitar that's a decent guitar, we never blame it on the piano or the guitar. We just realize very impersonally that I just need to develop my skill set more. With the voice, we attach so much person to it, personality, so much personalization, that it's never like I have to develop my skill set. It's almost honest. It's almost always for people that are living in the gap. I suck. I'm just never going to get this. I can't. I'm doing everything I can. And they blame their voice.
I would imagine that a very passionate or guitarist or pianist would feel better or worse based on how they're performing and how their practice is going. But I do agree with you that with a singer, because of the closeness of what it is and how personal it is, it's a little harder to separate because, like you're saying, it's not distant from you.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important that as you were speaking, I was seeing it coming together in my mind, because you were saying that some singers go, oh, I suck, oh, I'm no good. And I also have some singers that go, oh, my voice isn't working, my voice is acting up. And I think that there might be different types of individuals that are more prone to point the finger at, the voice or an instrument, like, oh, it's this piano, or oh, it's this guitar, and you just kind of want to throw it because you're mad because the strings aren't on right or something like that. And I think that does come down to the person's attitude and mindset. I'm not really prone to blaming something other than myself usually. So I'm the kind of person that I don't drive anymore, but when I drove, I could get in a car accident. In my mind, it was always my fault. And to me, there was no such thing as accidents. There were just collisions, and it was always me. It was never the other person. I didn't pay enough attention. And then I've interacted with people that I've had collisions with that come and they're immediately pointing the finger at me. And I just remember noticing, like, oh, I see there are people that are prone to pointing the finger and blaming someone else. And then there are people that are prone to blaming themselves. And I think that neither is useful. I think blame, whether you're blaming yourself or blaming your voice or blaming someone, doesn't really help. It's more like what you were saying, getting more scientific and clinical and going like one of the things I think I posted recently on my Instagram. By the way, if anybody's interested, my Instagram is gabriel.voice, and I post daily little inspirational quotes there. And I forget what it was, but it was something about I don't know if it was something to do with blame. It's not coming to me, but if it comes, I'll say it. That blame just doesn't serve. Oh, I remember. Ask not why my voice isn't working. Ask how I am obstructing it. So it's not like who did it or why isn't it working, but actually what are the mechanics that are impeding this functioning? And I think that that's a more productive way to engage with the process rather than like, is it my fault? Is it his fault? Is it their fault? Is it, it
Right.
doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's just, what is the outcome that you're looking for? Where are you failing to achieve it? And how can you kind of understand why it's not happening?
Hmm.
And then just engaging in a process of like correcting that imbalance, which is usually what it boils down to. Something's not balanced,
Yeah.
and then you're looking for that. So it's a rebalancing act, which is
Right.
another thing that makes singing tricky because our voices, our guitar is our guitar in the case. Our voice has phlegm one day, or we didn't sleep well that day, or we got a lot of stress going on, and then that's why we're tempted to blame the voice, but it really could point to our self-care, which is
Right.
another good thing that we could talk about.
Yeah. No. No. That's really true. To your point a few minutes ago, um, about the difference between the voice and other instruments.
Hmm.
It's funny because I play piano, guitar, and drums, and I used to play a ton of guitar and a ton of drums, and and I play piano well enough to teach. That's about it. But some people think that I'm better than I am, but I'm really faking it. No, it's really true. Uh, and But for those three instruments, if I recall right, and I think I sort of do, uh, I never really looked at them like I look at the voice. And I think this is really true of a lot. I'll go as far as to say the majority of singers that I've worked with over 30 years, that it's true about um, when somebody wants to sit down and learn a piece on piano or guitar, or they want to learn a drum beat or whatever. It's really, it happens, of course, but it's much more rare that somebody thinks they will never get it.
I agree.
Very few people say, I'm just never going to get this piano piece. I'm just never going to get this guitar lick. I'm just never going to get this drum beat. Most people, and myself included back in the day, that just never entered my mind. I mean, he can do it. Of course, I can do it. And honestly, I think, and I'm just putting this together now after 30 years, I think that was the challenge of singing because I did have the mindset like, oh, I'll get that. I'll get that Clapton lead. I'll just keep doing it. Okay, I'm getting it. I can feel. I had a process. I had a system. And I used to visualize it, mentally rehearse I didn't even know I was doing it. But in retrospect now, looking back, I know that I was doing that with everything I got good at. I was mentally rehearsing it.
Yes.
And so then when I had a very impersonal look at it, very academic, a very positive, I'll get this. I can get this. It's just it's like a coordination, I can see my hands. Then we go with the voice. We can't see our hands. We can't see what's going on in there, right? And things aren't working. We panic because we don't know how to fix them, and we immediately think we don't have the talent, we don't have the skill, we don't have the this, we don't have a way of getting it.
And
Nobody can help me. There's nothing going.
and
And
on top of that, the culture, has a double standard. They see a little kid trying to sing something and he doesn't sound great, and they go, "Oh, take up the piano or take the guitar." They
horrible.
see they see a
Yeah.
kid playing with a piano and they go, "Oh, he's going to be a pianist, and let's get him lessons."
Yeah.
Because I really truly believe that this myth. It's so deep, and I think it just comes from just years and years of just misinformation and falsehoods that you either have it or you don't.
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely. It's such garbage.
yeah,
And I've worked with so many people that that belief has been just like put on them.
yeah,
I just,
and how hard it is to work with someone like that when they have that. You know,
yeah,
we become at that point, like a lot of my students say, you should be a therapist. And I'm like, no, therapists should be voice teachers. That's my whole thing.
yeah,
Because for me, voice lessons worked better than therapy. So when people
yeah,
say
right.
that to me, they'll say to me, I should be a therapist because I'm like working on that level of like their belief that they don't have it.
Yeah.
And then they think that I'm being a psychologist, but I'm not. I'm really serious. If you have that belief that you can't do this, we got to talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
People don't realize that it's absolutely the most important thing. It really is it's the number one thing with singing. It's probably the number one thing with anything. And people are really starting to realize that. If you buy any course online these days from
Hmm.
anybody who knows anything about anything,
Hmm.
even if they don't advertise it, the first module from whatever you buy, whether it's business or finance or whatever it is going to be mindset.
Yeah,
It just is.
yeah,
Because if you don't have the right mindset going in, you can forget about it. The first thing in all of my courses is mindset.
yeah,
How to look for what to learn in this program and how to set your mind right to get the best results and what to do. Because if somebody's at a place where they're not getting what they want, they don't have the results they want from their voice. Why? There's a whole lot of information out there. There's YouTube videos. There's some great teachers. There weren't that many when I started 30 years ago, but I've trained a bunch of them. I mean, there's a
yeah.
lot of great teachers all over the place. You're one of them, right? I
Thank
haven't
you.
trained. I did not train you. I don't want to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
But you're a great teacher. So there are a lot of great teachers out there.
How
There's a
are
lot of,
you?
oh, thank you. There's a lot of how to. So if you're not where you want to be, how come? And yeah, I mean, it could be skill set, but oh my goodness, like 90% of the time, it's the mindset leading the way. And so if you can help people with that, which is honestly much harder than teaching voice technique, much harder.
Yeah.
You know, you know,
I think that's what sets you apart and sets me apart from many teachers. As I started a while ago, that I asked you, did that teacher address mindset with you? And you said no, it was just skill set. And it's just the understanding that when people come to you or to me, they want to learn something. The first thing that I think we need to kind of and I need to wrap up. The first thing that we need to kind of address is how to learn. So it's learning how to learn. And part of learning how to learn is having the right kind of soil to learn these new things. And the soil is the mindset or the attitude, and we need to have that nicely primed and prepared. And we need to know how to do that. Take all these weeds out that are in our consciousness and that hold us back. And I think that it's not just, to me, vocalizing isn't just organizing your voice. I think it's also organizing your psyche, organizing your
right,
brain, organizing your life. And that's
right,
what I think for me, as someone who loves singing so much, voice lessons helped a lot more than psychotherapy. And I'm not knocking psychotherapy
right.
because other people it might work better than voice lessons for. But my experience was that it helped me a lot more because I tried many modalities, and
Sure.
I keep coming back to singing because it's the thing that re-regulates me, rebalances me, reorganizes me, and it just fuels my spirit. And I guess we all have to find what that is for us. But if someone's watching this, I have a pretty good guess that if they watch this much, singing is important to them. Wouldn't you
Right.
say?
Exactly. And I'll leave you with this, by the way. And whenever I work with anybody initially, the first thing I always do is not my agenda. The first thing I always do is immediately help them get what they came in for. Through that, and I'm sure you do the same thing. So they
Yes,
want they
of
want this
course.
note. So we get them that note, or we get them this, or we get them that. And then through the acquisition of that, usually in the first lesson, sometimes in the first few minutes, you can see by their reaction what was preventing them from getting it, and if they're going to accept it. And from there, if necessary, you can dive into the mindset. But I don't ever just immediately push my mindset agenda on anybody in person, but it will always come up.
Yeah, no, yes, that's why I'm making this video. I'm not proselytizing or having.
Oh, no, I know, for sure.
Yeah, they'll watch this, they'll understand kind of like the behind the scenes of how you and I teach, and then this will come up, like you said. But I'm not leading with. I'm not trying to. I don't have a cult over here. I think the singer should be the cult of mindset. I think
right,
the singer
exactly.
should be the. I see the singer is my boss.
Yeah.
They're hiring me, and so I'm trying to get them what they want.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Really
Man.
appreciate it. It's been great talking to you. And yes, again, Mike Goodrich, you can find at mikegoodrich.com, right?
Yeah, Mike Goodrich, just like the tire. My wife hates it when I say that. But he also says that every time I say it, it sounds like Good Ridge, which it is not. It's Goodrich.
Maybe you can bring that up in your next.
Yeah, right, exactly. Maybe I should change my name. Who knows?
All right, Mike. Well, have a great day and appreciate your time.
You too. No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
See you soon. Bye-bye.